It's the Brad and John Show.
It is the Brad and John Show. This is segment B on December 31st, 2024, the last show of the 2024 year. John, you had a correction to make.
Yeah, so yesterday you and I talked in A Block. When we were recapping shows on 93.3, we talked a little bit about Missouri American Water and also American Water. And Brad, there is a misconception out there that I mentioned and corrected in A Block yesterday, which is that Missouri American Water is owned by a German company. And a lot of very smart people, including you, Brad, still believed that as of yesterday. But, Brad, while we were right after we got off the air, I got a correction from the good folks at American Water, and they let me know that the German company, RWE, did own American Water from 2003 to 2008. And then it became a public company. That German company divested, Brad. They got rid of everything that had to do with American Water. And that company actually spun off in America and to become American Water Company. And it's publicly traded. So if you hear, there might be old websites or memes going around like, remember GeoCities or maybe MySpace that has some kind of conspiracy about the Germans owning American Water and Missouri Water. No, American Water has been publicly traded since 2008. And this is the type thing, Brad, that the beauty of today's modern society is most people have access to Google. So before you go saying that a company is secretly owned by a foreign entity, you can always, in most cases, if you have access to Google, invest 35 to 45 seconds in looking up the facts of it. So shout out to the people from American Water and Missouri Water who pay attention to our show, who, Brad, there's some folks who listen to our show and are able to correct some of this misinformation.
Well, see, I'm not trying to say I was correct, but I was correct in saying that they were, you said a short period of time. You would just say 2003 to 2008? That they were. Yeah,
that's right. So for a 5-year period, which was 20 years ago, they owned American Water. You're right, Brad.
Well, but see, once again, I don't consider that to be a short period of time.
And we could split hairs for the whole segment. But Brad, let's go back to the fact that some people are saying, including Brad yesterday, that German entities own Missouri American Water, and in fact they don't. So yes, congratulations to us. We fixed a myth and we busted something that was incorrect, and we're helping people. Maybe, Brad, by doing this, we could encourage people to invest 35 to 45 seconds instead of spreading ridiculous anti-corporate myths. Maybe we can invest them to just, inspire them to be just a little bit better. You know what I'm saying, Brad?
Well, if they listen to the show, and they do, right? Or they listen to the show, they listen to the podcast or the YouTube version.
They don't listen live, Brad. They're not living underneath a radio tower in Washmo, but they read my website. Yeah.
Thanks, John. So nice of you to say that. Okay. If they're listening, you American Water people, would you put my damn meter outside so you keep bugging me about having your guy come in my basement and replace the stupid meter, which you've already replaced like 4 times? Put the thing outside, or like all the other utilities, put it so it's on the cellular network so you never have to come into my place again. Because, we have to replace your meter, and our man will be there sometime between 7 o'clock in the morning and 10 o'clock on Monday, 10 o'clock at night on Monday.
Yeah, but hold on, Brad. Don't you just capture rainwater and filter it and drink it? Because haven't you heard that the communists in Germany are trying to put fluoride into the water?
Oh, I think they've already succeeded in that. I think isn't RFK trying to take the fluoride out? Isn't that one of his things? He's saying.
I think so. And then I also think the beauty of it, though, is because of chemtrails, you can also have acid rain. I saw a post, Brad. I don't know if you've seen this. This was really hot on right-wing social media over the weekend. I'm sorry to hijack this part, but I think this is funny. Some conservatives and libertarians I know were spreading this video of a purported farmer who was like, yeah, I got over here, this is GMO corn and it's growing fine. And then I had heirloom corn and it's all dead. And you know what? And then in the comment section, it's all about how chemtrails are dumping aluminum into the soil. Now, Brad, I worked for 12 and a half glorious years for the GMO industry. Never once did I talk to a plant scientist or a biologist or a botanist who ever mentioned aluminum and GMO crops. Like, how naive do you have to be to look at a TikTok video and be like, Bill Gates is controlling aluminum chemtrails with the GMO industry. And it's not like I wouldn't even take 30 seconds to correct this. Like if I hear something wrong about American water, I care enough about people on that other station to help them see that they're wrong and they should be better. But like, you can't correct people that think that chemtrails are dumping aluminum to spread GMOs. You get what I'm saying?
Okay, first off, my first question would be, not being an aviation expert, but being someone who watches the aviation industry and knows probably a little bit more than the average guy, how is there aluminum coming out of engines because of the fact that
Brad.
If there's aluminum coming out of the engines, there's something wrong with the engines. You know what I'm saying?
No idea. Yeah. Or maybe they go down to your scrap mark off of 141, and then at nighttime they steal a bunch of aluminum, they grind it up. Hey, you know who's in charge of that, Brad?
Who's that?
The Illuminati.
Oh, the Illuminati. Okay.
Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. John joke.
By the way,
I got us off track. You had stuff to talk about.
Well, yeah, I just got a text from Tracy Ellis. She says, Brad, you're missing the point. The fluoride in the water is by a German fluoride company. So John.
That's terrific.
I'm sorry. Okay, so we beat the Tracy Ellis thing. See, the crazy part of this is, for those of you who don't normally listen, Tracy Ellis got her start on this very radio station. And when she decided to, and you got to understand the whole crazy thing with Tracy, she used to do a show at 97.1, and she was a paid show. She was paying to be on the air. They didn't pay her, she was paying them. And she did a real estate show, and quite honestly, did a good real estate show. Well, it got to the point where she got very political, and a real estate show turned into, she did an hour on Saturday morning, hour on Sunday morning, and it got to the point where it got to be, originally it was like 90% real estate, 10%, a little bit of lifestyle. And then it got to be 80% real estate and 20% politics. Then it got to be like 90% politics and 10% real estate. And the general manager station essentially said, Tracy, you're paying to be on the air, but you're not doing the political stuff. And she got into a little bit of tit for tat, back and forth, and then there was some staff changes at the station, and that's when Tracy went on the Rhino bandwagon. Well, she says, well, 97.1's turned into a Rhino station. It's rhinos, rhinos, rhinos. I get so sick and tired of hearing that, John, because of the fact that that's why, you knuckleheads out there, that's why there's legalized abortion in Missouri now, or at least it's supposed to be, but it's not in yet, because of the rhino stuff, right? It's the finger pointing, and it's like
a lot of infighting. You're right, Brad.
It's the purity test. And see, once again, Mark McCloskey, did I say that right? I didn't say McCloskey.
You did, Brad. Way to go. That's the first time in 13 months doing the show you said it correct. Way to go.
Okay, let me take a drink of my milk. And okay.
There we go. Touche.
Okay. And in my pocket,
or as the French say about their women, douche.
and in my pocket, I have several quarters. So I'm getting on. And I don't drive on farty far. I drive on 44. Okay. I don't even remember what I was going to say.
Hey, you know what? Speaking of accents, Brad, one of the things I love about your boy, Dan Strauss, and, I've never met him. I just listened to him on the radio. He has one of those great St. Louis John Goodman accents.
Oh, he does?
And you know exactly what I'm talking about, don't you?
Well, can I tell you? I don't think I've ever told this story before. Will you allow me to tell this Dan Strauss story? Okay, Dan Strauss worked for me back in the Traffic Network days, and Dan Strauss worked for me. He was a reporter, and he did stuff for me in morning and afternoon drive. And once again, Dan's a hard-working guy, and he's always in a good mood. You never see him in a bad mood. Okay, so Dan worked for me during the day, in morning drive, and he would get out of here about 9 o'clock in the morning, and he'd come back in the afternoon 3 to 6. Now, during the day, he worked at the old Kicks 104. I think he was on the air. I don't know what he did. He was over there at Kicks 104 during the day, and he would come back. So in other words, he was working 12-hour days. He was working, 3 hours for me in the morning, go to the other radio station, come back, and then finish out his day working here. And then sometimes he'd have a part-time job at night. Hard-working guy. So Dan was going through a divorce. And it got to be sort of an acrimonious divorce.
This isn't the hockey equipment story again, is it?
No. This is
okay. Good. Okay, because that's I wouldn't want to tell that on his behalf.
Okay. Well, but here's the funny thing. I've said to Dan, I go, do you mind me to? Oh, go ahead.
Okay, I got you. I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
Okay. So one day at our office, Traffic Network office, and we left the door open all the time. People come and go. One day, I'm in the front office. There's a knock on the door. I go, who's that? I open the door. There's a woman standing there. And
But
she
Brad, isn't this the car and the equipment?
No, this wasn't the hockey equipment.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
This was, she's standing at the door, and she says, hi, I'm Dan Strauss' wife. Oh, hi, good to meet you. And she says, when Dan works here, where does he usually park? And I go, well, he parks back in the parking lot there. Well, exactly. Can you show me if he has a space he usually parks in? I go, well, usually right over there. So she says, okay, thanks. So she goes out and gets in her van, and she drives back in our parking lot. And she opens up the side door of the van, and she throws all of Dan's clothes onto the parking lot. All of Dan's personal belongings, his clothes, she's throwing, and we're standing, looking through one of the windows of the parking lot going like, I can't believe this. So, I mean, and then she comes back to the front door, knocks on the front door, and she says, hi, hey, can you tell Dan I was here? I said, I think he'll probably figure out when he shows up and sees the mound of his stuff in the parking lot. So I called Dan. And he's at Kicks. And I go, Dan, your wife was here. And she goes, what's that? What's she doing? I said, she threw all your stuff, all your clothes and everything in the parking lot. She opened up her van and she threw all your stuff in the parking lot. And he laughs and he says, that crazy B word. And he says, okay. He says, do you need me to come pick it up right now? I go, no, Dan, don't worry about it. You know, when you come this afternoon, you might, and he was driving a car at the time. I think you might have to make a couple of trips because, and this the funny part of it is, he says, if I can't get it in my van, can you keep some of the stuff for me? And I said, sure. To this day, I have 4 boxes of Dan's stuff.
And that's what I don't mean to interrupt, Brad, but that's what I meant. Like, isn't the story is you still have stuff in storage? I thought you told me, because you've told the story a few times, I thought it included like hockey equipment
No.
a whole bunch of other stuff that Dan owned.
No, that's a different story. Different story was
okay.
This was at his house. He came home one night, and he's had a detached garage, and the garage was like behind the house. And, you know, it's night, and as he turns into the driveway and he comes around the side of the house and he sees the garage where he's going to put his car, his wife has stacked up all his hockey equipment, and she's spraying it with lighter fluid, and she's going to set it on fire. And he gets out, oh, what are you doing? Don't do that. Don't do that. So this is Dan. He's never in a bad mood, and he's one of the most reliable, loyal people you can find. And once again, you want to be around someone who's positive, who says good things about people, who I don't ever remember hearing him say a bad thing about anybody. He's just, to me, he's a role model. If we had more Dan Strausses in the world, let me put it to you this way. If we had more Dan Strausses in the Republican Party in the state of Missouri, there would be no abortion right now. And once again, I say that not that I'm, against or for abortion, but the crazy thing about this is the Republicans not only shot themselves in the foot, they dropped a hand grenade down their pants. You know what I'm saying? Because stupid stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, and once again, and Bill Eichel can say, "Well, I'm holding up the whatever his state." Once again, there comes a point when you get in a room and you say, "Okay, everybody in the room, let's have one of those big picture talks. What do we ultimately not want to have happen?" And the answer to that question was, we don't want to have abortion legalized in the state of Missouri, right? Shouldn't that have been the goal?
Yeah, but you used the word should there, Brad. You said should, and that's way different than what's going to happen.
But the crazy thing about it is, the interesting thing is, I think the Democrats are paying part of the problem with this now, because so many people looked at the AOCs of the world, and like what we talked about, the guy who was criticizing the speech patterns or the words that Kamala Harris used. She just didn't talk like a normal person. She just didn't talk like you and me going to the bar or sitting at a restaurant, eating hamburgers and stuff like that. We don't talk like, well, John, how's your centering doing? Or is your life, throw some of the words, throw some of the terms they would use. Centering was the one the guy talked about yesterday. What's some of the other crazy, weird things they would talk about?
Like BIPOC, Latinx, things like that.
Right. Things that, by the way, I've decided that I'm going to come out of the closet.
Ooh, I'm ready, Brad.
I'm a non-trinary. Get it, John? I'm
So that means you're not male, female, or what else? What's a trinary?
I'm non-trinary and I'm transracial. So I want.
I like that. I like that. I can understand that. What's trinary?
Well, what's binary? Binary's 2. Trinary's 3. I'm non-trinary.
Oh, that's very good. And then pretty soon we could be non-quad.
Right, non-quadrangle or whatever it is. I mean,
hey, let's get back to the abortion thing real quick. Do you know the upside of all this, Brett? I have an upside for 2026.
We're skipping 2025?
Yeah. Here's the upside for 2026, because 2025 is just going to be a lot of fighting. In 2026, the legislature will pass a provision to put pro-life language on the 2026 Missouri ballot and to get it into the Constitution. And pro-choice and pro-life groups will spend tens of millions of dollars in Missouri. And once Tracy Ellis has purchased your stations from you, she will be able to reap the benefits of all that pro-life. See, it all works fine.
Well, that's just like Mark Cox talked about the Clean Missouri thing where they changed it with the constitutional amendment. And he's saying that's what you need to do with the abortion thing. You know what? See, I'm Mr. Libertarian. I mean, I'm not for or against abortion. I can see both sides of that issue. And being libertarian, I'm going like, hey, man, whatever. Do whatever. The laws should state you can't murder people. You can't drive on the left side. You can't drive like we talked about yesterday, which you complimented me on my analogy of saying someone, hey, if you're from England, you should be able to drive on the left side of the road because you're from England and we can't discriminate against you. Once again, the basics of being a libertarian is, and everybody thinks it's anarchy. No, you say the libertarians state the base requirements for living a harmonious life where we all try to live together. We don't nitpick and we don't micromanage and, like Flarson says, you can't have your trash cans out after 10 o'clock in the morning. We don't do that kind of crap. You know what I mean?
I do know. And but you're notorious for leaving your trash cans out, Brad. I mean, between that and scalping your grass, I don't know what's wrong with you.
John. I wouldn't ever scalp my grass. I always make sure my scalping rollers are attached. Okay, we have to take a break. We'll be back.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?